They never wanted you to know this. While most people live trapped in the third dimension, chasing money, status, and approval, as a small group has already learned to operate in a state where time and space are no longer barriers. You, without realizing it, already tap into this frequency from time to time, but you have been conditioned to ignore it. This knowledge has circulated in restricted circles for decades, used to accumulate power, shape events, and attract opportunities. Meanwhile, you have been trained to believe that everything depends on struggle, sacrifice, and waiting. Every day, trapped in that logic is another day, and your energy feeds systems that survive on your distraction. Now, there is a chance to break this pattern and access the real mechanism of reality creation, the one that turns intention into event and desire into fact. But this window will not remain open forever. Those who do not adjust their frequency now will remain stuck in the old machine. The decision is in front of you.
Most people live under the comfortable illusion that reality is stable, fixed, and obedient to immutable laws that conventional science describes. But this is only a partial narrative, carefully shaped to keep attention locked on what is visible and measurable. Behind the solid appearance of things, there is a dynamic vibrational field where consciousness and energy intertwine, and it is there that the true architecture of human experience is designed. What we call the physical world is nothing more than one layer of a much broader spectrum of existence. Quietly, a portion of humanity already operates beyond it, even without realizing it. The transition underway is not political, nor is it technological in the superficial sense. It is a mutation in the very way of perceiving and interacting with reality, the passage from the third to the fifth dimension. This is not about moving to another planet or crossing celestial portals, although some traditions use that symbolic language. It is a leap in the quality of consciousness, a shift in the vibrational state that radically changes how events, relationships, and circumstances manifest. The fifth dimension is not a separate territory in space. It coexists right now in the same place you are, just like multiple radio frequencies coexist in the air. What changes is the tuning. While the third dimension is dominated by the perception of separation, effort, and the linearity of time, the fifth is based on interconnection, flow, and simultaneity. This means that the job you imagine, the house you visualize, and the relationship you desire do not need to be pursued as distant targets. They already exist, waiting only for your frequency to align so they can collapse into your field of experience. This assertion directly contradicts the chase after it logic that shapes modern culture. From an early age, education and society program the mind to believe that achievements are the direct result of physical effort and relentless struggle. However, those who already operate, at least partially, on the frequency of the fifth dimension know that this equation is reversed. It is not brute effort that creates, but the sustained internal state. It is the coherent vibrational field, charged with clear intention, that magnetizes people, circumstances, and opportunities. Science still hesitates to state this openly, but studies on heart coherence, electromagnetic fields, and neuroplasticity already leave cracks for this understanding to seep in. The interest in this subject is growing because, for many, the signs of this transition are already tangible. Some notice coincidences, multiplying to the point of defying statistics, meaningful encounters happening at perfect moments, or a sense that something is coordinating events with invisible precision. Others report subtle physical changes, greater sensitivity to environments and people, a periodic need for isolation to rebalance, or even an inner shift that makes it hard to sustain old conversations and habits. All of this can be interpreted as symptoms of a vibrational realignment that has already begun. This is not mere mystical speculation. Modern interpreters of ancient spiritual principles, such as Neville Goddard, have shown that the human imagination is the creative power in action, operating behind the scenes of reality. His thesis, that feeling is the secret, converges with the fifth dimensional experience. By feeling the desired reality as if it is already real, consciousness reconfigures the energy field and collapses space-time, attracting the corresponding scenario. What once seemed like a miracle reveals itself as vibrational engineering. This is not a process reserved for isolated monks or rare visionaries. It is available to anyone willing to abandon the restricted view that life is a linear sequence of purely physical causes and effects. Here is the unsettling truth. This change is already happening on a collective scale, whether you are aware of it or not. Ignoring it does not stop it. It only delays your conscious participation in it. In the course of this exploration, we will uncover the mechanisms of this transition, the concrete signs that you are already living, at least partially, in the fifth dimension, and the ways to stabilize this frequency until it stops being the exception and becomes the norm. To understand the scope of this dimensional transition, it is necessary to first deconstruct what is meant by dimension outside of the limited vocabulary of school-level physics. Common sense tends to reduce the idea to spatial coordinates, such as length, width, and height, plus time. While this definition is useful for measuring objects and calculating trajectories, it is insufficient to explain realities that can be perceived by those who enter expanded states of consciousness. In spiritual and esoteric contexts, dimension is not a physical address, but a vibrational pattern of existence, a state of consciousness that determines the quality of the reality that is perceived. The third dimension, which dominates the daily experience of most people, is characterized by a perception of separation between the observer and the observed, by a linear time that appears to move in a single direction, and by a constant need for effort to maintain or to achieve anything. This is the dimension where matter is perceived as solid, physical laws are taken as absolute, and identity is shaped by the ego and by external narratives. Here, a person's value is often measured by the ability to compete and to accumulate. The fifth dimension, on the other hand, operates under completely different parameters. In it, the notion of separation dissolves. It becomes clear that everything that exists is interconnected by an invisible field, and time ceases to be a line and is experienced instead as a set of coexisting possibilities. This does not mean that matter disappears or that physical laws stop functioning. It means that interaction with them takes place at a subtler level, where consciousness directly shapes the course of events. In 5D, creation does not arise from physical effort, but from the sustained vibrational state. This understanding did not appear out of nowhere. It is grounded in ancient traditions that, under different names and symbols, already pointed to the existence of multiple levels of reality. Vedic texts describe lokas, interpenetrating planes of existence. Hermetic schools speak of subtle and dense planes coexisting. Christian mystics interpret the many mansions in my Father's house as a metaphor for states of consciousness. Neville Goddard, one of the most incisive interpreters of this vision in the 20th century, insisted that we do not go anywhere, we simply enter states. For him, every scenario and every person in life is a direct projection of the internal state, and altering that state inevitably alters the external scene. This view resonates with contemporary research into the interaction between the mind, the body, and the electromagnetic field. Neuroscience has documented how coherent patterns of brainwaves, aligned with heart coherence, produce physiological changes and influence the perception of reality. The HeartMath Institute, for example, studies how the electromagnetic field of the heart, which is far stronger than that of the brain, can be influenced by emotional states and, in turn, interact with the environment. Quantum physics, though often misinterpreted, already acknowledges that the observer influences the behavior of particles at the subatomic level. While these findings are not definitive proof of higher dimensions, they weaken the narrative that consciousness is merely a byproduct of the physical brain. In today's context, ascension is spoken of not as an escape from the world, but as a gradual realignment of vibrational frequency, both individual and planetary. This shift affects the physical body, which must adjust to sustain higher states of consciousness. Symptoms such as heightened sensitivity to sounds, lights, and the emotional fields of others, changes in sleep and diet, and even sudden shifts in interests and values are often reported by those in transition. These adjustments are not random side effects. They are the biological system's responses to a different energetic pattern. According to this perspective, the Earth itself is also undergoing a vibrational elevation. This is not merely a poetic metaphor. Measurements of the Schumann resonance, the planet's natural electromagnetic frequency, have shown significant variations in recent years. While conventional science attributes these variations to solar and ionospheric factors, some alternative researchers maintain that these spikes are correlated with collective expansions of consciousness. If that correlation is more than a coincidence, then the shift is not merely internal, but part of a systemic recalibration involving the entire planetary ecosystem.